What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Dream Chasers Ground Zero. Today I have with us Jason Ricks. Jason, would you mind just sharing your story with us a little bit and telling us about what your personal ground zero was like? And to kind of piggyback off of that, what some of the skills and knowledge that you come across along the way were that helped you to get to where you are today?
Yeah, it's a little bit. Thanks again, Aaron, for having me on. This is great. I've got a long-winded ground zero story, so I'll try to speed it up the best that I can. In essence, I've kind of had two moments in my life that really kind of signaled to me that I needed to make a change personally. The the first one is in regards to my athletic career. So grew up, I played soccer, you know, football, track, basketball, you name it. I played every sport. And my goal at the time was to be either a U.S. men's national team soccer player or a D1 football player. And so I decided to go the D1 football route for a lot of different reasons. Came out of high school, I was really, highly recruited, top 10 of the country in my position, had a lot of different avenues that I could take that in. I could go to some nicer, higher end schools. I could go to, some Big 12 schools. I'm from Texas, so the Big 12 meant a lot. That meant that my parents could watch me play and some other things like that. So I played for 4 years. I was a team captain for 2 of those years. I had the talent. I had the drive physically. I could do a lot of things. And, unfortunately, at the end of the day, I had some really, really nasty injuries. I had 2 things really go wrong in my career. And that was the first one was I had knee surgery coming out of high school. So I had a partial ACL tear, a lateral meniscus tear. And so I had to get those repaired. And any athlete will tell you, as soon as you go through those, especially under a knife, it completely changes the way your body moves and you start to compensate. So I started as a freshman. Things were going well. I was, really recovered well. I trained extremely hard to be able to play my first year and had a decent first year. I had some Big 12 Player of the Week stuff. I had some other kind of accolades during that first year. I had a very up and down season. That's the life of a field goal kicker, by the way. One week you're the hero of the team. You kick a game-winning field goal. You're on national television. Next week, your game of the week. It's college game day. Kirk Herbstreit in the game. You're there in Stillwater, and you miss a kick to beat the number 1 team in the country at the time from about 50 yards out. So you have these giant swings like a roller coaster. You're on cloud 9 one week, and then the next week you're at ground zero, essentially. But for me, I ended up having a quad tear very high up in my leg, on my kicking leg. It's kind of like a pitcher, right? If you're throwing right-handed and you get a really bad tear in that shoulder, it changes the way you can throw. Well, I had to recover, and the rehab on it was pretty grueling for a year. And from that standpoint, I came back stronger. I came back better. The following year, I had a phenomenal year. And going into my, what would be called my junior redshirt year, I ended up re-tearing my quad, and I ended up tearing my groin, essentially. And my tolerance for pain, this is a weird thing to say, especially as a field goal kicker. I know if there's a lot of football players out there, it's like, well, this dude didn't really play. But at the same time, I had an immense pain tolerance, and I had a passion to play. I was naive and I was young. And so I decided just to take pain medicine. They would shoot me up before the games just so I could get to the games. And I remember my last collegiate game, I pretty much knew going into that game that I was done, physically, emotionally, the whole thing. Because when you go through rehab, it's extremely strenuous, not only physically, but more so, I'd say twice as much psychologically. And so going into that game, you know, I get shot up to numb the pain essentially. And man, I just knew. I mean, you can tell as an athlete, you know your body. And I just thought, man, coming back from this, having 2 tears in my kicking leg, the ability to rehab it, to get strong again, and to not re-tear it. So, you know, I ended up playing against. I'm from Austin, Texas, by the way. So this is a very critical part of the conversation. I'm from Austin, and so I'm in the backyard of the UT Longhorns. UT did not give me a scholarship. They gave me the opportunity to walk onto the team, and if I earned the starting position, they give me a scholarship. But being from Austin, you take a lot of pride in that. You know, when you get a chance to beat the Longhorns, which were, again, I think they were top 10 in the country at the time. You had Colt McCoy and some other amazing, Jordan Shipley and some other really amazing guys on that squad. We had them in the fourth quarter, and I had a chance to kick a go-ahead field goal with a couple minutes left, and I ended up missing it. That was my last kick ever. I had no business being on the field that day, 0. But I had a lot of ego. I had a lot of pride, and I let some of that stupid stuff get in my way. And so after that game, after not being a football player, essentially, right, knowing that I was done, a lot of my identity was wrapped up into that. So I didn't really know what to do. I graduated the next semester. I was angry. I was upset. I was depressed. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, because really kind of my goal, my vision just basically got derailed. So I was somewhere in this gray area for I'd say like 4 or 5 years. And like any fun college kid that doesn't get a job right away, and I didn't know where I wanted to fall. And I was having fun that last semester. I wasn't really giving much thought to my future. And I ended up having to come home. So, you know, I didn't really know what I wanted to do either. My parents were involved in real estate. My dad, my entire life, has had a lot of financial stress, raising 2 kids, you know, trying to provide for us, give us the things that we needed and wanted to grow. But he also worked for a big corporation, and I saw how that weared on him over his life. I mean, he had been, 40-year engineer for a large Fortune 500 company, and they just wore his ass out. And we talked a lot about, what I wanted to do with my life. And there was a period in his time when he was younger where he invested a lot in real estate. My mom liked to invest in real estate. She actually worked in real estate. And we talked a lot, and they said, man, if we could do it all over again, we would have been continuing to do what we did previously, which is buy homes, buy duplexes, lease them out, manage them, flip them. They're like, we had so much fun doing that. You're a personable guy, Jason. You don't have the engineering side of the brain. You should probably be better suited for like soft skills, like going into sales, marketing for a real estate company. And so that's kind of where I thought I was going to go with my life. It was 2008 whenever I was looking for a job. So I decided that I wanted to get into commercial real estate for a lot of different reasons. Well, no one was hiring at that time, right? So it was really easy for me to just say, well, this sucks, things aren't working out for me. But I just kept driving for this, like interview after interview. I was forcing my foot in the door, cold calling, getting in front of people I knew, working angles, working my network. I went on 19 interviews. No one had a job for me. And I remember on my 19th interview, I was like, all right, dude, like, if it doesn't work out this time, I gotta, like, it is what it is. It's 2008. It sucks. All right. I didn't really get it at the time, but real estate was just obliterated, obviously. Come to find out, my employer at the time was like, hey, look, we've got some new properties. We need you to come on and do some leasing and brokerage for us. I said, okay, great. So that's what I did. I cut my teeth in leasing. But during that time, I was, I was young, I was naive. I still had a lot of ego, pride, and, I floated is the best way I could say it. I was learning skills, but I floated for like 4 years. After 4 years, I, understood kind of the market. I understood what I was doing. I really liked real estate, but I knew I didn't want to keep being an agent. So I decided at the time, I said, okay, look, I can go into asset management because I have the years of experience, which is kind of something I thought I wanted to do. Or I could try myself out and be an entrepreneur and do my own thing. I ended up going the entrepreneurial route because, I like to bet on myself. I like to be in the game. There's a lot of facets to running your own show that meant a lot to me personally and professionally. And so that's what I did. I gave it a shot and I fell flat on my face. So, you can imagine like this rise, right? I'm the best at what I do, right? I go to a D1 school. I start right away. I have a really terrible ending to my career. And, I get involved in real estate. I'm successful, but not really successful. Like I was good, but not great. I try my own thing as an entrepreneur. I fall flat on my face. I'm dead broke, dude. Just absolutely crushed. I have no money to my name. Moved back in with my parents. And I remember that feeling of just feeling 100% exposed. Like, haven't figured it out. Everything that I've attempted has failed. And I got to a place where I was ready to mentally make a change. Like what has been working for me in the past isn't working for me anymore. And I have to change my thinking. I have to stretch. And I was kind of like soul searching, to be honest. I didn't know what I wanted to do or where I wanted to go with my life. And I was just hungry to kind of take more things in. For the first time in my life, I opened up myself, like my shell that I had, right? I had this protective little thing that I thought I was, but all that got just riddled away. And that was the best thing that ever happened to me because it stretched my mind. And I came across the book by Eckhart Tolle. I don't know if you're familiar with Eckhart. It's called A New Earth was the name of the book. And it talked a lot about being present. It talked a lot about the ego and carrying this old baggage and this old drama. And really I wasn't truly living life. I was kind of visualizing in my mind where I wanted to go. It was almost like we call it like movie making, right? Like we thought your life was this and you were this person and you're going this direction, but really you weren't even there. Like I was in conversations with people, but I was in my head 3 steps ahead. That book was a life-altering event for me. And I had to dust myself off. I had to pick myself up. At that point, I was dead broke. I was in a long-term relationship that imploded. It's funny how that works in life, right? Like when things are like that, you have this convergence of stuff that happens. And, I was looking for another job. I was looking for a new start. And I came across that book. It opened up my mind. It took away some of my fear and anxiety away for the first time in a very, very long time. And it opened up some space for me to think and just be, honestly. And from that, I took that new mindset and I moved to Dallas for a new position. And what was so nice about this new career path that I took, the company that I work for, they just gave me an opportunity. They threw me into the deep end with no safety raft, and they just wanted to see if I could swim. And I got my butt rocked, dude. Like it was so difficult, and I was thrown into unique challenges that I've never been in before. I was put in all different types of stressors. And did I struggle? Yeah, 100%. But it was the best thing because I grew so much. And once you start growing, you almost kind of get addicted to growing and stretching. learning, applying those new skills, and maximizing your potential. But I was doing it from the best place. I was doing it from a place of presence. I was, everything else is secondary in your life, man. If you're not really fully there, in the moment, I mean, because that's all life is, right? We're just living these little moments by moment. You can't live 2 years ahead. You can't live in the past. You have to live in this very second right now. And when I took that mindset and that approach to everything that I was doing, there was a certain quality that was coming through me. And, that really set me on a trajectory where I could develop and grow my career, my network. And I was taking more information in. And it set me down this path where I was very successful in that position in Dallas. Entered into a long-term relationship. Now my wife, we've got a beautiful baby boy. It wasn't easy to get that. We had to go through IVF for, I didn't know this, but there's a lot of fertility issues for male and female now for people our age. And having children later in life is also a complication for a lot of women. But we just kept fighting through, and we were blessed and went through IVF and had our son, and decided we wanted to move back to Austin. And I had a chance to work for an amazing company, and continue to develop and grow and stretch in multiple different ways. And I kind of built up this deep reservoir of experience and, passion for what I was doing. And it came back to this same thing. It came back to this idea that I have this passion in me and I can apply it and help other people. And I think for me, I at the end of the day, that's what I've always been about. Like even my previous thoughts of, after football and after, I thought maybe I'll get into physical therapy. Maybe I'll get into, being an athletic trainer, stuff like that. But it really came back to this core issue is like, dude, you got this passion and this energy and there's that voice in your head. It's like, you can go help people with these skills that you've taken along your life, and you can multiply those for other people. And that's what gets me so excited. And so that kind of, again, long-winded story, but that's how I came to the position that I'm at today, where I co-founded and started a company. We're taking the skill set that I have along with my partners, and we're applying it through a vehicle that helps other people achieve a level of financial freedom and success, which is deeply ingrained in me given my upbringing. So I'm so excited to get out of bed in the morning. Like, wake up, get to work, do what I love to do, and help other people reach that level of financial freedom.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry. I'm like wrapping my head around the entire story. I mean, it's extremely powerful. I mean, and there's a lot of ups and downs to it too. So, you know what I mean? Like I was there emotionally with you going through all that, because I mean, while, I haven't reached, that point yet, but I have had very similar experiences, whether it be in sports or just things so far, where I was definitely deeply able to resonate with some of the things that you went through. I myself had to go through a kind of similar identity crisis after choosing to step away from sports, where I really had to find something else that I was interested in and something else that excited me. I mean, and it took time, like it's probably taken me, close to a year before I was able to find anything that nearly excited me to the point that sports had. That's just how I was. That was just, and very similar to like you, I just had this passion and this energy that, that was like sports just perfectly aligned with that, because it was where I was really able to expose myself in those ways where, it really took me, that long to kind of find something else that resonated with me in that way.
Yeah.
And, it's just that, I mean, powerful journey, and it's super awesome to hear where you are now. And, some of it, I guess, I just go back to, like when you were making that turn, that pivot to where you really realized like, okay, I want more, I'm tired of, doing these same things. Obviously this isn't working. It's time to make a change. where did you go to, I mean, find information? Where did you start, your personal journey there? What were some of the things that you started doing to sort of start shaping that change?
I think I knew and I was aware at the time. There's a little voice in your head, right? And if you suppress that little voice in your head, it's still there. You're just pushing it down deeper, and it gets softer. But it was still there. It was still very faint. And that's the coolest thing about, again, hitting ground zero or bottom or whatever you want to call it. There is no level anymore. I mean, you're there at that moment, and you're open to different things and different avenues. I thought to myself, where's this pain coming from? Where's this anxiety coming from? What do I want? Like, what is this all about? And the coolest thing was that I didn't have any of the answers, man. Like, this is the funny thing I tell people all the time. It's like, they tell me, oh, I don't know what I want to do. I'm like, that's awesome. Just try anything. Just try, get into action. Don't sit there and be worried and like, oh, what are people going to, no, if you're worried about what people are going to think of you or this or that, like, you're stuck in your head. And for me, I was like, dude, whatever was in here at the time, just empty it. And what direction, just be in that space, think about it. I mean, sit by yourself for like a period of time and just kind of work these things out. Reading for me was like an escape. And it was the funniest thing, dude. I listened to that book. I couldn't put it down, right? Eckhart Tolle's book. I stayed up all night listening to it. And I had the book in my hands too, and I'm going through, I'm highlighting it. And this stuff just hit me so hard. And it shook me, like really kind of shook me foundationally. And then once I kind of was living life through this different state of being, I just started gravitating in a direction. It wasn't forced. It wasn't like I was jamming something in. It just opened up, dude. It just literally opened up, and that voice in my head that I've suppressed for so many years, it just kind of guided me in a direction. And I started reading about finance, and I started reading about investing. Dude, it was like, it's like if you're in the desert for like a year, and then you see this oasis, and it's like you just start drinking and eating. That's what I was doing. I was just consuming this information. I couldn't put it down. And that was like a thing that was totally new to me. I had zero interest in that space before that moment, but naturally it was there inside of me all along. So I just kept feeding it, just like I would with your sports, right? When like you're into something, man, like it doesn't feel like work, it feels like play. Yeah. And there's just this natural level of interest where you just want to geek out on it. And that's what I did. It was just that space and that awareness that I finally gained that allowed me to kind of just allow myself to go in the direction that it naturally wanted to go. But I had to be present first. If, without being present, I don't think any of this would have been possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I know, actually in the last episode that we recorded, the woman that we had on and I had a good conversation about like in a situation like that, like you almost need to allow yourself to take a step back and really look at where you're at, what matters to you, and make sure that you're aligning yourself for your next pursuit with your values and with something that's going to excite you that you'll be able to pursue. So, I mean, it definitely rings true there. And I mean, it's just, really amazing how we're able to just redirect ourselves like that. I mean, because after whether it be an injury or, just like whether it be however your time is up and whatever it is that you are doing, if it was that big of a part of yourself, it's a huge, huge loss.
Yeah.
I mean, and you feel empty, you feel depressed, you feel angry, you feel all those emotions at once and you don't really know what to do with them. And you're like, you're sitting there and you're going, I'm so frustrated, depressed. You have this huge emotional weight that you're carrying and you're going, and I still have to find something else. And I still have to fight through this and now go find something else. And nobody wants to do that, but that's where you have to kind of take that step back, kind of allow yourself to grieve, for a lack of better term, and and redirect yourself to something that you're going to be able to find that passion, or find that, that something that you can put that energy into, that you're then able to still find that excitement in whatever that new pursuit is. So one of the questions that I had, I mean, is just when you started to kind of take in all that information, do you remember any of those books, or whether it be just whether it was a book or an audio book or any of those readings or resources that you were plugged into? Do you kind of remember any of those that you were starting out with?
Oh yeah, man, tons of them. Bogle spoke to me, the founder of Vanguard. Again, going back to this idea of adding value to people's lives financially, what they did with index funds was revolutionary at the time. So I gobbled his information up. William Bernstein, Dale Carnegie, God, How to Win Friends and Influence People. There's so many books. I mean, I could literally geek out and talk to you about an hour about the books that me personally. Real estate books. I mean, some of the books that I've read were like, I'm reading syndication law books. Like, this is weird stuff, right? But all of those books kind of spoke to me because it opened up this possibility of like what's really out there. And I love hearing about other great people, what they're doing, and whatever it is. I don't care if it's like in badminton or landscaping, things that I have zero interest in. I want to hear about the best, right? I think that is so much fun, and I want to hear their story and how they got there. But learning about great people, learning about history, philosophy, like, God, the stuff that Naval is putting out there now. I don't know if you know Naval, or I'm a huge Ray Dalio fan. I love hearing about, his book Principles was amazing. If you haven't read it, I highly encourage anyone to read it. It's a little dense at times, but just a phenomenal book. And if you're lost in, you're in a place where you're wanting to accept any and all things, I mean, again, Eckhart Tolle, that was the book that set me off on a journey that opened up just a million doors and possibilities for me. But that if I had one book, that would be the one, A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle.
Awesome. I mean, books are a tremendous resource that I really feel like not enough people utilize anymore. I mean, obviously we have the internet and stuff now, but the value that you can get from a book that really kind of dives deep into those topics is far above what you're going to get from whatever article you find on CNN or whatever it is website that pops up when you type it into Google. And I mean, that's something that really I even had to come to terms with because, when I first, my interest was first peaked in, real estate or wealth or any of these things. I mean, the first place I went was the internet. Yeah. And I was like, okay, like I'm getting a general idea of what some of these words mean. And I'm getting an idea of, some of the stuff that goes on. But then I'd also sit back and I'd go, okay, I still don't know what this means. So that's where I'd have to find, that more in-depth resource, such as a book or, something that really kind of dove into it and put it in terms that I could understand. I mean, the first book that I was told to read that really kind of resonated with me and really helped me kind of debunk everything that I was going through was Rich Dad Poor Dad, which is the famous purple book that numerous people, started with as well. But it truly shattered everything that really I thought I knew, that, I had experienced with so far. And then really from there, sort of like you said, it was like that oasis. It was just like, okay, like what else can we learn? What else can we learn? And then it turned into who else can I meet? Who else can I have conversations with? And it's just now it's, like this kind of, it's almost like a movement, but within yourself where, after you find that new target, it's almost like all the different parts of you start working together again as they had for your new passion. It's just, you have to kind of identify it and allow yourself to be encompassed in it and, follow that new passion.
I have so many things to say about what you just said. For me, I have a very active mind. And so I needed something to quiet my mind. If you don't like to read, don't read. There's audiobooks, but just go ahead and try to find something that interests you. I don't care if it's an audiobook or if you like to read or if you want to go down the YouTube black hole, go for it. Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Poor Dad author, his story is amazing. A friend of mine is Tom Burns. Tom Burns was the first guy that purchased Robert's book. He bought it at a car wash, man. And Robert, no one wanted to publish this thing, right? So Robert self-published it, and he begged some car wash guy to put it on that little rack where you can like buy stuff with the checkout counter. Mm-hmm. And Tom Burns, a very successful syndicator, doctor, surgeon, picked it up, loved it, told all of his friends to read it, called the publisher and was like, we got to help you get this out. That was the story of that book. It's fascinating. Everyone turned it down. And Tom just wrote a book about this. It's Rich Dad, or it's Rich Doctor, Poor Doctor, I think. Anyway, for those that are listening, just go to Tom Burns. I think the first chapter is about his relationship with Robert and how he found the book. So, I mean, just an unbelievable story about how that book came to be probably one of the, I think it was the largest sold self-help financial book ever. I mean, yeah. Just an amazing story coming from a car wash, self-published. Just, it's insane, man. That story alone blows me away.
Absolutely. I mean, and me as well. I mean, right after that, I dove into cash flow quadrant, which was like the next one. And same thing. It's like the next step into that whole world. And same thing. I was just like blown away by all really the things that are going on behind the scenes of all the lives of, everyone I've ever met, and none of them know it. And I'm sitting here reading this going like, how is this even
not taught? How is this not taught? How do people not talk about this? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's so funny. I think about the same thing. And I talk to people even today, like good friends of mine, family members. They're still caught up in this old mentality. I think the internet has shifted everything. I mean, if there's something that you're interested in, there's a book, there's a podcast, you can call someone. I mean, that's how I'm partners with Michael Flight and my other guys. I mean, I just picked up the phone and called them. Like old Jason wouldn't have done that. I would have been too cool for that. I would have been too in my head or my ego about it. And I just was like, who cares? What's the worst that he can do? Tell me to go, screw myself and leave me alone. I mean, whatever. My football coaches did that every other day. So I've got nothing to fear, right? But there's just such a huge amount of information for those that are hungry to learn it. The thing that I find that's really, how many people are really hungry to learn? I mean, just basics, right? There's a lot of people that want something or they want to achieve greatness, but like how many of them want to like actually understand it and learn and grow? So it's just that ability to want to stretch and expand that I think is a unique quality.
100%. And I mean, just going back to your story a little bit, it's just after coming out of a situation like that, I mean, and when you start kind of choosing that new direction, I mean, after being knocked down multiple times, like you said, after going through 19 interviews, like after being, quote unquote, knocked down that many times, like, what is it that you did to kind of help yourself stay motivated and keep your eye on the prize per se, just so that you use to keep yourself pushing, knowing that, one of these is going to be a yes, like one of these is going to lead me to where I need to be.
Yeah. It's corny, but it's like that burning desire inside of you, right? Like, for me, it's that voice. It's my furnace. It's literally just what's in my heart. Like it's there. And I wasn't going to accept a no because I didn't create a plan B. Arnold Schwarzenegger's famous for this. He's given a really amazing speech that like basically broke the internet. Jim Carrey's another one that does really good. It's like, dude, what's the alternative? I mean, and I wasn't living in that space. I was just living in like, okay, it's going to take X amount of no's to get a yes. And that's okay. I can go, look, it's no sweat off my back. It's a 30-minute to an hour-long interview. I get to meet someone. Maybe they can help me down the road. Do the best you can. If you don't make it, that's okay. But if this is what you feel passionate about, then it gets easier, man. Like I mean, I fail all the time, even today. Like I fail, I make mistakes all the time. And I think what I've changed my mindset around is this idea of like failure. And I don't look at it as a negative. I just look at it as a positive. As long as you're failing, there is a right and wrong way to fail. But if you're failing correctly, you're moving forward, right? And it's how you, that's how you stretch. It's, you know, you go to the gym, you break down your muscles when you lift weights, and then you recover, and then it gets stronger. And it's the same mindset that you take to, you know, to cold calling or to a sales job or going into an interview. You're going to find the right fit. You just got to be willing to go through that grind.
100%. I mean, and I think a lot can be said for one of the things I thought of there is really the difference between a problem that you come across and a failure. Because I think a lot of people kind of get them confused in the sense that, you know, you find something new that you're looking into, and then, I mean, I'm trying to think of a good example. Just that you come across something that, I mean, hard stop, roadblock, whatever it is, and you're distraught. You're like, oh, come on, I just got started. Like, what am I going to do now? Well, like, it's your first problem, but it doesn't necessarily mean you've failed. And that's where, like, a lot can be said, like you said, failing forward. Well, really, if you're working on something and you're finding new problems, you're typically headed in the right direction, because these are things that you need to figure out. These are things that you need to wrap your head around and understand if you're going to become successful and you know, educated on whatever that topic is or whatever that skill is. It's something that you're going to have to find a way to work around. So, you know, learning to kind of embrace that problem, that setback, whatever exactly you want to call it, is going to be a part of it. And then I had another point, but it's slipping my mind.
Yeah, the only way to get to the other side is through, man. Right?
Yeah.
That's what I think about it. The only way to get to the other side is through. And there is no magic door. There's no magic bullet. You're going to have to go through it. And that means you're going to get hit down a few times. But if you know that going into it, you know, I'll give you a really good example. So not a mentor, but someone I highly admired. One of the best people in Austin real estate, the best tenant rep broker in the business, right? So when I was an agent, I looked up to this guy. This guy was making a fortune, and he was like the go-to guy. And I asked him, you know, because I mean, how did you get to where you're at? And he'd look at me and he'd go, listen, man, every time I pick up the phone, I determine the math. So every time I make a cold call, it's $5. So I changed my mindset around, God, I hope this guy likes me or whatever. He's like, no, how many times can I dial numbers today? Because the more numbers I dial, the more $5 I get. And that was his mindset, dude, which blew me away. He was like, I don't even care. He's like, look, I know how much I make. The more calls that I make, the more money I put in my pocket. He goes, it's just a phone game. And that just was like, that just blew me away. I was like, oh my God, this guy's, again, I've never looked at it from that perspective before. He didn't even care, man. Like in a good way, right? I mean, he wasn't like soulless, but you get it. I mean, it's just like, he just knew that that's what it was going to take. And he didn't even think about it as yes and no's. And as you look about talking about history and you read books, you find this common theme of failure amongst all these great people, at whatever profession it is. No one, Malcolm Gladwell wrote a really good book on this. Is it Alan Green, who also wrote a book on mastery? Lord, look at the people that have achieved that level of success. They have failed, and it took them like, what is it, the 10,000 hour rule, right? It's like a 10-year process to get through it. Couldn't be more accurate. So you're not going to be day one success. I know that's what everyone hears about, right? They think about Bill Gates or Steve Jobs or, you know, all of these guys that have built these, you know, Bezos. One of my favorite photo of Bezos is when he had that old shitty office where he was just stuck in like a closet and he had the cardboard sign that said Amazon. Talk about someone that had to go through the grind to get there. And now he's built the most efficient product that we've ever seen in our lifetimes with AWS. And it's just, you know, it's phenomenal. So, you know, all these guys go through it. And kind of going back to my comment, the only way to get to the other side is through.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that another thing I've come across here is just that statistically, if you keep going you will eventually reach your success in terms of repetition or just whatever you want, whatever word you want to use for it. Statistically, you will eventually become successful because you're either going to get better at whatever you're doing, or eventually someone's going to give you a yes. And
Yeah.
think of it in terms of like I was watching a presentation of Russell Brunson's this morning, and he was talking about in the story he was telling, he was talking about becoming one of the cool kids, and he's saying that like the more times I call somebody, the more times I reach out to somebody, the more chance I have of becoming one of the cool kids, because I just need one of them. I just need one cool kid to say that I'm cool, and then everybody else is going to think I'm cool. Like
Yeah.
you really just need, whether it takes 500 or 42 or however many calls or attempts it takes, if it's something you're passionate about and you continue to push through, you will eventually find that success. You will eventually get a yes, and you can become one of the cool kids too, or whatever, analogy you want to use.
Dude, action beats inaction any day of the week. And one of my favorite Eckhart Tolle quotes is output determines input. I mean, it's just as easy as that. The more you put out there, the more that you receive. If you're feeling something, if you're feeling underappreciated towards something, go appreciate others and watch it come back to you tenfold, right? If there's something that's missing in your heart for whatever, give it to others and it will come back. I promise you, it's like a law of nature. I mean, that's, to me, like those little sayings stick in my mind. They're so powerful. It's like, if you're looking for something, go give it to someone else and you'll be received. And I know there's some biblical, stuff in there in that phrase as well. But for me, it's just output determines input.
Yeah, absolutely. Now I know it is getting about to that time where we should probably start winding it down a little bit. I know we could probably go on about this for, much longer, but just in closing, I know we've debunked an awful lot today, but if you could kind of go back and have a conversation with it, whether it be your 18-year-old self, 22-year-old self, just at one of those points where you were really kind of stuck and you had to pivot, if you could have a conversation with yourself at just one of those times, what do you think, what do you think you'd say in that conversation?
Quiet your mind and sit in it. So many problems can be solved if you just take the clutter out and you just sit in that pain. Just sit in it, feel it, ask yourself questions. Why are you experiencing this? Dig in. I found a million reasons to be distracted to solve real problems. Alcohol, women, party, whatever stupid stuff I could find to like take my mind off of pain. No, don't avoid the pain. Sit in it and just calm your mind. And that sometimes for me, it's like 10, 15 minutes. And I think so many things could be solved if we could just slow down and just think it through. And sometimes that means not thinking at all, like meditating. So, I mean, honestly, that's what I tell myself, just to slow down, take some deep breaths and just sit in it for a minute and ask yourself the real questions.
That's really powerful. I like that. I actually haven't heard that quote, but I like it. I mean, and it's 100%, rings true. It's absolutely something that, it is hard, but the sooner everybody says you have to face your fears, you have to face the pain, whatever it is, sit in it, it's just really powerful. So, I mean,
Yeah, be transparent, man. Be vulnerable. We got one shot at this thing, right? So, if you've got something, be real and authentic to yourself. Like, expose all of your warts and all, because that's the good stuff, man, is when you can get through, that's the real. That's the real. Everything else is just like surface dressing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, honestly, I just want to say thank you, obviously, for coming on and being willing to share your story. I mean, that alone was you showing, being transparent, being vulnerable, like that alone, just being able to come on and share your story and talk about the experiences that you went through, revisiting all of that, pain, frustration, all of that, that alone is extremely powerful. So, I mean, just obviously, thank you for coming on and being willing to share. Would you mind just providing a way for, any young entrepreneurs, whether it be, students or whatever, to follow up and get in touch with you?
Yeah, sure. So we have a website. It's www.liberty libertyfund.io. So libertyfund.io. Or, feel free to reach out to me. I'm always trying to help people. That's something that I thoroughly enjoy. It's Jason at libertyfund.io.
Awesome. Awesome. I mean, and yeah, I just want to say thank you again. I mean, extremely, extremely powerful story and just, lots of tremendous value packed into the episode today. So obviously, thank you again for coming in to share. I mean, do you have any last thoughts before we close it out?
No, just keep grinding, folks. Have fun. Enjoy yourself. Listen to Aaron and to others. And if there's anything I can do to help you out, don't hesitate to reach out to either one of us.
Hey, you heard him, folks. Fortune's in the follow-up. Thanks again, Jason. I really do appreciate you coming on today. Remember, everyone, this is ground zero. There's nowhere to go from here but up.